Hey guys, welcome back to the Friday vlog where we discuss activity that goes on here with the BuzWeaver channel. That includes things like current events, headlines that are in the news, social media, technology, and items of interest that come up during the week that allow us to have a little bit of a dialogue, a little bit of a departure from the standard coverage here on the channel. If you guys are new here, I want to welcome you, and if you are a frequent viewer, I would suggest both of you guys click on that watermark down there in the bottom right-hand corner to subscribe along with that notification bell so you guys will know when the newest content is released here on the channel. Earlier this week, I came out with a video that kind of highlights some of the things that we have been contending with here as YouTube creators, at least for the last 3 years, but it is continuing to progress, and changes and things that we have to do to kind of make the videos viable to what is considered some of the rules and terms of service that YouTube has released. If you want to check out that video and its contents and link, I'll leave a link for you right up here in the top right hand corner of the screen so you guys can check that out. Deputy Attorney Rod Rosenstein is resigning, and the curious thing about Rosenstein is he is really at the center of the Russian collusion investigation, as it were. And the thing about it is, when you hear about Rod Rosenstein, it usually circles around the fact that there was a potential wiretap on his part during a discussion with President Trump. And that seems to be where the media kind of focuses. Where they don't focus is kind of more of the background onto what started the actual investigation itself, which was on a hoax Steele dossier. Now, you can't really call that a conspiracy theory because the Steele dossier exists, and the fact that Rosenstein himself said that he didn't even read the FISA warrant before he signed it that launched the investigation. And there's all of these things going on in the background that is just kind of indicative to the political machine, the swamp that's there in Washington, that leaves out all of this kind of pertinent information that lets people recognize that, you know, this seems like kind of a haphazard type of an investigation where things really weren't thought out. And then once the FISA warrant was signed, there really wasn't much the FBI could do at that point other than, of course, to proceed with it, because you can't just say, oh, by the way, we went back and we looked at the Steele dossier, which kind of launched this whole thing, and realized, oh, you know, actually it was kind of a hoax. It was a generated political smear that was going to be used by at that time the Jeb Bush administration, or the Jeb Bush campaign, and then sold it to the Hillary Clinton campaign. And the kind of the amusing part of it all is that they had no idea that Trump was even remotely going to win, right? The whole idea was that they were going to use this information from the Steele dossier to ensure that Trump wouldn't be able to run in 2020. And things changed, and things became completely almost unhinged for these groups of individuals. And so this ridiculous, absurd investigation continued, and that's what it is. Most people, when you ask the average American, this is like the least of their concerns, this whole Russian collusion nonsense, because if you think about it, the argument here is that you have a group of sore losers who are trying to find a way to argue how it was that Trump won, and their argument is that Russians interfered with an American election, which would have been under President Obama. So it's just extraordinary when you kind of think about all this, which is why probably President Trump just simply says, you know, it's a witch hunt and absurd and ridiculous, which it kind of really is. And the thing is, you know, certain people just want to let it go, right? It didn't work, right? It was a flash in the pan, and they just want to let it go and you know, move on. And Trump doesn't really want to. But anyway, so it was kind of amusing to see the Attorney General pull Rosenstein up there during the announcement about the findings of the Mueller report, because basically his options were he was going to be fired or he was going to resign. And of course, the man wants his pension. He's a political machine. He's part of the swamp. So naturally, yeah, he's going to resign. But nonetheless, I will leave what the media says about him down there in the public section below, as they just briefly gloss over the FISA warrant, which is actually what started it all. But nonetheless, guys, you can find the information down in the public section below. On Tuesday, April the 30th, Juan Guaidó, the acting, I suppose you could say, or the recognized leader of Venezuela, launched a light and or small coup which is, of course, interpreted as an uprising. So he's essentially surrounded by some of his officials and very small contingency of military apparatus there. And he was going to kind of launch into Maduro and essentially unseat him from office. The problem, of course, is that the Maduro organization, or the current regime, along with the military, did not jump on board. So kind of the plan was that maybe if Guaidó had launched this, he would get the popular support because, of course, the United States and other countries throughout the world support Guaidó or recognize him as the official leader of Venezuela, while Maduro still stays in power as the reigning dictator, is really the simplest way of putting it. Now, some people like to go into the whole socialism and the breakdown of socialism as kind of their leveraging point for argumentation, but nonetheless, there is a country that is falling apart here. That's what people need to understand, and people are suffering, and there's a lot of difficulty and strife going on in the country. And because Venezuela is where a lot of business is conducted as far as oil, because they are a very wealthy nation with a great deal of oil, of course, it does get the attention of some of the superpowers in the world like Russia and China. And we have seen that Russian troops, or I guess you could say liaisons, are there in Venezuela to kind of help out. Now, as we understood it, they are kind of more on the Maduro side of things versus Guaidó, but it's really hard to say how that balance of power is going to unfold. But the people there in Venezuela are the ones who are actually suffering from all this strife. And we'll have to just continue to keep an eye on, see how these things unfold. Now, I do have a gaming guild buddy that lives down in Caracas, and on occasions I do get to talk to him, and, you know, apparently his particular situation there in Caracas is not nearly as drastic and severe. And of course, we know that obviously we know what is actually going on there, and of course what the media wants to cover, and then what people there are saying. Of course, obviously people are suffering, and there is obviously a major problem there. But nonetheless, guys, so a soft coup, as it were, was attempted there in Venezuela this week. And of course, a lot of the highlights and a lot of the imagery that we saw was some of the military vehicles rushing through groups of individual people, and you know, just exchanges of tear gas, and just kind of the bedlam that makes the headlines throughout the world in the news media. But nonetheless, guys, if you want to read more about it, I'm going to put two different articles, two different links down in the public section below, so you guys can check that out. Presidential hopeful Bernie Sanders suggested to Disney that it take its Avengers profits and pay the crew a middle-class salary. Now, you can essentially tell here that Bernie may not be familiar with how businesses work, and that is that industries and companies and other forms of business have pay scales already set up. There are structures within businesses that kind of outline what particular positions pay for, and that's why you see them, you know, advertise sometimes as to what positions they're looking to fill, so that they can appropriately find the people based on meritocracy, hopefully, and based upon that, what they should get paid. So clearly this is an act of pandering, and I just found it amusing because it had all the ingredients of its own Hollywood production, because in Hollywood, many of the studios and facilities and producers and so forth in a film are unionized. So they already have these types of scaling and payment methods to the particular employees, including Disney and Hollywood in general. I just thought it was kind of amusing because we are a constitutional republic. We do exercise and practice capitalism in a free market system. And if nothing else, it clearly illustrates that Bernie is not exactly putting these things together in his mind as far as how business works, because it should be very apparent that good old Bernie here is just simply pandering to his base and trying to reach out, I guess, to the pop culture of groups of individuals. I mean, not even his more progressive types may particularly subscribe to this, because it doesn't have the typical identitarianism to it. More or less, it is just kind of a socialism move on Bernie's part. But anyway, that's just Bernie Sanders being Bernie Sanders. I just thought it was kind of amusing because he was targeting an extraordinarily, you could call Disney and Hollywood being those who would typically be more endorsing of a Democrat. So nonetheless, I thought that was quite amusing. If you want to take a moment to entertain yourself with that outline, I will put it down in the public section below. And that's going to wrap it up for this Friday vlog. I want to thank all you guys for your likes, shares, and comments. Your participation here on the channel is always appreciated. And I would like to encourage you guys now to click on that channel icon appearing right there on the screen to subscribe, along with that notification bell, so you guys will know when the Friday vlogs are available, as well as content that's here on the channel. And I will see you guys next Friday.